as promised, we always like to bring our audience really awesome, dynamic guests. And um, today is someone who is really making a name for himself, a budding U.S. national team star, a player that I really, really like and I'm excited about. But I'm going to pass the baton to you for an intro because as much as I really, really like him and I'm excited, you love this kid. So take it away.
All right. Well, I had the immense pleasure and misfortune of coaching against this man with San Diego Loyal when he was with El Paso Locomotive. And watching him live, you knew there was something different about him, something special. Uh, I can't, I can't, in good faith, say I saw him coming this fast into MLS and doing well, and this fast into the national team. But I did think it was the potential was there. Without further ado, Real Salt Lake and U.S. men's national team rising star Diego Luna. Diego, welcome, my friend.
What's going on? Thank you for having me. How you guys doing?
We're good, man. How are you?
We're doing good.
You're
Yeah.
having quite a year.
Yeah, enjoying a little off day, but yeah, we're doing good.
So Diego, I wanna we wanna touch about on what's going on recently with your rise, and it's happened maybe for you not quickly, but for a lot of fans who are just tuning in recently to the national team. I think you really announced yourself in January, and I want to take people back to where you started. So you grew up in Sunnyvale, is that right, Northern California?
Yeah, Northern, yeah.
Okay, and you were part of the earthquake system, right? The youth academy system.
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
And then I want to start, and because I think this is interesting for people to hear. When I was coaching in USL, a lot of times kids are talking about, I want to be an MLS, I want to be an MLS, I want to join an MLS team, I want to join an MLS roster, I want to be a part. And we would say to some of these young kids, the most important thing for you at 16, 17, 18 is to be playing soccer games now. You are developing well, but if you're on an MLS roster, you're not going to play. I want to know why you made the decision to not go into an MLS academy and to go to a USL team where you had a much better chance of playing and then eventually prove yourself and played. So why did you make that decision?
Yeah, so it was definitely a decision that, my family, agents all had to be a part of, right? And I think for me it was, mainly my decision to understand that I was seeing kids getting, brought into MLS teams and then just kind of, floating around on the second teams, not getting minutes and stuff like that. And I was seeing this happen, with my own eyes. So I then, thought about the opportunity to go, prove myself and earn my spot and kind of rise up the ranks type of thing. And that's kind of been how my youth days were kind of performing, then taking a leap. And I think that's what really made me, make my move to USL to get the opportunity to play and showcase myself there to make sure that, I am good enough. I can showcase myself here and then, move up the ranks from there.
It's really unique because nowadays, like I said, people are so obsessed with getting to the highest
Yeah.
level as fast as possible, and they forget about playing. And we see it
Hmm.
with kids saying, "I want to go to Europe. I want to go to Europe. I want to." And I always say, "Well, what does that mean?
Yeah,
You can go to Europe and you can sit on a bench and never play soccer,
exactly.
and that doesn't help you." So, I want to commend you for that because I think you're a great now story for other
Yeah.
young kids to look at and say, I don't have to be in an MLS
Mhm.
academy. Maybe I can go somewhere else and play soccer games
Yep.
and get better and better. And would you say, my guess is at 16, 17, you're playing against full grown men.
Yeah.
You're competing now to earn a starting spot versus playing against 17 and 18-year-olds, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the thing, with of course, not putting any hate on anything, but like when you go to MLS Next Pro, you're gonna be playing against, academy players or guys that aren't young kids. But when you go in the USL Championship, that's a division of grown men,
Mhm.
retired, good pros, and if you're a young player like I was going into that environment, you're still competing against, faster, stronger guys. And you're proving yourself and you still have something to prove there. And once you perform there, you can showcase yourself and like I did, no, and show everybody that you're ready for the
Yeah.
next level.
I mean, America, take note, please. There was a famous
Yeah.
coach in England, Arsene Wenger, right? And he saw this young kid, Jack Wilshere, and he said he is ready to play at Arsenal, and he's going to be an Arsenal player. But you know what I'm going to do first? I'm going to send him to Bolton. Take your map out and have a look at where Bolton is. It's not a place where Jack Wilshere wants to be, but it hardened him, it toughened him up. And it's funny, Diego. I think we are similar in a way,
Yeah.
and we'll get to the tattoos in a minute. But
Yeah.
I played in the USISL, which nobody remembers. That's like a defunct form of the A League and USL. But you have this path, and I'm thinking about you just like mentioned, like parents and agents, get out of the way, right? Because Diego, you have this dog and this nastiness about you. When I say that, that's the most glowing accolade I can give any player. You've got this tenacity to want to prove yourself. And
Exactly.
I think that it's always really important to, when you're making decisions, not everyone's built like you. Some people say, I don't know if I go down to USL, I might not make it. But I get the impression you said, gimme, let me go down there and I'll show you what I've got. I just that has to come from somewhere. You talk about your NorCal upbringing.
Yeah.
Like, take us back to where that attitude, where that nastiness comes from.
Yeah. I'm a kid, that didn't really come from much. My
Mhm,
family worked really hard to give me what they could and provide me with everything that I'm extremely grateful for. So I think for me it was always, fighting for what I wanted,
mhm,
needing to prove myself and at any level, and even on the soccer side, I never played my age. I was
mhm,
always playing, 5 years up, 2 years
mhm,
up, three
Mm.
years up. It was never, me playing against kids my age or my
mhm,
size. It was always bigger, faster, stronger. So for me, it was just always gotta like I gotta prove myself. I'm not here just because, and taking it back, my brother and my dad were my coaches. They would bring me up on the older teams and put me on the bench. He's like, "You're not proving yourself. You're not,
yeah,
you're not playing well. You're not doing what
Mm.
you need to be doing." So no matter if it was my family, they were gonna sit me on the bench and be like, "You're not doing good enough."
mhm,
So I think it just came from the way I was raised and kind of the family that has given me everything and worked hard to put me where I'm at. And I just, picked up on that to provide, to make sure that I'm doing the best to showcase myself to it. Yeah.
Yeah, Tim, I mean, we have kids, right? So like I'm I start to wonder how much of that is just natural versus
mm,
how much does your environment or your parents or your upbringing play into that? And I'm sure it's a mix of all that. But there, take us back, Diego, because I think this is the moment, and this is what Tim is talking about. This is the moment that put you on the map for a lot of people, that Costa Rica game in
yeah,
January, right? So you
mm,
get called into January camp with a bunch of other guys who are sort of on the fringe or not really in the national team yet.
Yeah.
So walk us through the game. You get hit in the face. I think an elbow, right, hits you
Yeah.
and you're bleeding. And can you take us through that moment? Because you end up coming back on the field and a lot of people kind of turn their heads and were like, oh, this kid like really wants it. Like really, really wants it. And I think I'm setting this up, Diego, because I'm not going to ask you to touch on this, but we've been frustrated with some of the guys in our national team who just don't have that same level of pride and care for their national team. So walk us through that moment.
So in that game, it was a big moment for me and always, grateful to have the opportunity to represent, the USA. So I break my nose, middle of the game. I get pulled out to the side. They try to, put it back in place right there on the sideline. Um, and coach is looking at me like he's like, "Are you ready to come off?" And I'm like, "No, there's no way. There's no way. Like, there's no way I'm coming off in the 15th minute because of this thing, I can still run. I could still see, you're not stopping me right now." And I think that was just the mentality of me because, you don't get these opportunities, all the time. You got to take advantage of the opportunities you're given, and like I said, you gotta showcase, you gotta make a name for yourself, you gotta, provide and stuff. So, in those moments, it's like you think in your head, it's like this is an opportunity where you could take the easy way and hop off and broke your nose, what a story, blah blah, or you're gonna grab your chance and go for it. So I think for me it was just saying like there's no way I'm coming out of this game, and he was telling me that it's okay, you don't have to rush it. it's preseason and stuff. And I was like, no, 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 let me
This is
play
my
until
World
half.
Cup.
Yeah, let me play until half, and from there we can make a decision. And he asked the doctors if that was okay, and then they said yeah, and I was able to go back in there, and maybe the best decision of my life,
That's true.
to go back in there and get an assist right after, and from there, yeah, just showcase myself, and that was just it's cool to me because it made a lot of headlines and stuff,
Mhm.
but it was cool to me because that was just me. It wasn't like
Right.
me trying to be anything. It was just exactly what my head wanted at that moment,
Mhm.
and so
Mhm.
that was
Yeah.
cool to see, and it made me feel good and stuff. But yeah,
Well, never change. I mean, I think, when I get goosebumps listening to you talk about it, because I think what we're finding out about you is like there was never another option, right? There was and that and
exactly.
that
Yeah,
that comes from who you are, right? Like
yeah,
you weren't looking for the easy route. Like,
yeah,
this is cool and a great story. You wanted more, and so
yeah,
that's awesome. And look, if I had Mauricio Pochettino here right now, I'd be asking, why aren't you starting Diego Luna? I mean, I think you're poised and ready, and you obviously had to wait your turn. I think about this season. You're off to a great goal scoring start for Real Salt Lake. Is that a concerted effort? Because I think, look, I think of Kevin De Bruyne. There were certain moments under Pep where he had to score more, and then sometimes he had to take a back seat and assist and get more assists and unlock the door with his passing. Your assists are down, which is totally fine. Goals are more important, but do you feel like you're making more of an effort to get into the box, to get on the end of things this season?
yeah. And I think it isn't a secret that right now RSL, we're struggling to score goals.
Mm,
And, I think for me to step up and that's what I want to do. I want the pressure. I want to be that guy. I wanna, whether that's me getting the assist, whether that's me scoring the goals, I want to be that guy. And right now I think it is, on me to take that the pressure of scoring goals for RSL. Like that's what I need to be doing. And yeah, I think right now I'm working hard to put myself in the position to score goals. And maybe in a couple months it won't be me. Maybe I'll have to be assisting more and finding passes to our guys and stuff. But I think right now I'm happy to continue to contribute, and
mhm.
whether it's scoring goals or assisting, I'm all for it.
Diego, I wanna hear about your evolution at RSL. I think you've been incredibly fortunate
Yeah.
to have Pablo there, and incredibly fortunate now to have Mauricio there. And these are two guys who either grew up in South America or have a South American mentality, which is also a fighter, right? And I've seen you evolve, and I've talked to Nate Miller, your assistant coach there, a lot about you. I've seen you evolve in a lot of ways. You're not now just a playmaker, you are now a goal scorer. You are, I think, your team's now best defender from the front. You are not like, you counter press well, you defend well. You have changed that part of your game. And as I'm sure you learned with the national team, if you don't do that, if you just walk around the field and think you can just attack, you got no chance, right?
Yep.
So can you walk me through how Pablo and Nate have helped you in that way?
Yeah. I think it wasn't a secret. I think from the very first, day I started at RSL, um, Pablo just made it very clear, like, you're not gonna play. And it was also awesome because Pablo made it difficult for me to get the opportunity. He didn't just hand it to me. He made it difficult. He was, you're gonna have to do this, you're gonna have to do this, and you're gonna have to do this. You're not working hard enough. You're not defending good. Your soccer IQ on the defensive side is not good enough. Um, and what's better than that, right? Having a coach that's going to challenge you to become better and do all the right things you need to be doing to get the opportunity to play. So I think for me, I'm extremely grateful for Pablo to really tell me how it was, and really put it in my face that if you're not going to defend, if you're not going to, help the team on the defensive side of the ball, then there's no spot for you here. So of course, from a guy that wanted to be on the field, I had to learn, and I had to do that. So I put in, a lot of a lot of video sessions, a lot of, mentally, telling myself you got to do this, you got to do this, and kind of putting that on a loop to make it a habit, right? And make it a big part of my game. And then later on I found out that, that gives me the opportunity to score more goals. So why not do it, right? Why not defend better and to get the ball higher up the field and showcase myself.
If you're not already, you're going to be everybody's favorite player because you said what's better than a coach who gives it to you straight. The only thing that's better than that is a young player who's willing to take that information on board,
Yeah.
and you've done that. And so I know you're incredibly humble, so I'll
Yep.
certainly give you the praise for that. One of the things that I think about Diego is kind of next steps, and I let me preface this, and I think Landon and I are on the same page. I always find it a little bit off-putting when a player talks about, you're under contract with Real
Yeah.
Salt Lake. That's your team. It's always hard to talk about
Definitely.
the other
Sure.
teams and next step. But the fact of the matter is that's the evolution of soccer, right?
Yeah.
And if you go to the Gold Cup and to a World Cup and have another productive season and a half, the likelihood is someone's going to pay quite a lot of money to RSL and MLS for your services, and they'll be well compensated. Do
Yeah.
you think about the next steps? Because I think you more than anybody deserve that, from where you started to going into USL and
Yeah.
into MLS and to the national team. Do you dream about what's next and what that looks like for you?
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, first off, you don't want to say anything wrong
Mhm.
and stuff like that. And like you said, it's just the evolution of soccer. That's how it works. That's the job we're in and stuff like that. But for me, it's always been whatever club that I'm playing for at that time. I'm gonna give it a
Mhm.
100%. Like that's bottom line. So wherever it is, but yeah, of course, I think about that and what could be the next move for me and when that move could be. It's not always my choice or stuff like that. That there could be a team and RSL find an agreement. In the summer, it could be in 2 years. It could be like you said after the World Cup. Who knows? But for me, I have dreams. I have goals in mind to perform, and it's about providing for your family. So of course it's like wherever that's going to give you the best career and longevity and to be able to play and perform. And of course, you know, a place that I can perform so I can get the opportunity to represent the national team and stuff like that. So I think for me it's just about continuing to do what I can do for RSL and the opportunities I get with the national team, and then from there see where that takes me, and then wherever I land next, give it 100% and then start all over.
Of course.
Yeah, and Diego, you've proven that that is the path that certainly works for you, right? And I would encourage you to always remember that that is the path that works for you, right? So you went very unconventionally to El Paso, but you said, I'm going to give myself the best chance to play. Now you go to Salt Lake, and I don't know, what the conversations were or where the possibilities were, but Salt Lake was a great club because it was a club that would play you,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? And so now if you do end up moving 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, then you have to, I think, remember this is a
Mhm.
place where I am going to have a chance to play, right?
Exactly.
Because I think getting to know you now, you would be miserable sitting on a bench somewhere,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's not what you want.
100%. And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, that all goes into consideration when you think about clubs, right? You got the big clubs, the big names and stuff like that, but it's not always where it's where you want to be, but it might not be the exact time where you take that chance, right? You might have to, like I said, work up the ranks, and once you go to Europe, you can start somewhere, then go up and up and up. So I think for me, yeah, it's been the plan for me, and it's not going to change now because of whether it's money or just a big name club. I think it's about where I'm going to be able to play and.
Without giving away too many secrets, our listeners would desperately love to know what it's like on the inside of camp with Mauricio Pochettino and his style and how he deals with you players on a day-to-day basis,
Yeah.
what training sessions are like. How's that been?
Yeah, for me it's been awesome. I can't complain. You know, Pochettino, for me, the biggest thing about him is that he made me feel comfortable off the field, as a human, which allowed us, to be able to feel free and no pressure, when you're on the field. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. He knows how to connect with the players one on one, and make jokes and laugh and stuff like that. But also when you got to flip the script, and you're on the field, it's locked in. It's time to grind, and you got to be 100% focused. But off the field, there's jokes and there's stuff, so it makes you feel comfortable and allows you to express yourself on the field. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, that takeaway.
Diego, last couple things.
Yeah,
Last thing for me. Can you walk us through? Because Tim and I know this feeling well. You are now almost a year away from potentially playing in a World Cup, right?
yeah,
And I think at one point Tim and I were very much probably where you are, which is I would say somewhere on the bubble, leaning towards in based on recent performances, but you have to play well
yeah,
in order to, there are a lot of good players
yep,
that play the position you play for the national team, right?
yep.
So, can you take us in your mind right now and just help listeners understand what it's like to dream about next summer, and just walk us through what you think about and dream about?
Yeah, and I think for me, when you really think about it and you really lock in on it, it gives you like chills, like goosebumps. It's like, how crazy, for me, as the journey that I've had, and to be, 1 year away from potentially, playing in a World Cup. It's crazy to even say that sentence, right? To
In a
even
World
be
Cup at home, by the way,
exactly, yeah. To
which
even
is
to
insane.
even put that in the air is crazy to have that. But, for me, it's about the grind, every day now. And, from here on now, it's that's the big goal, right? So every game with RSL, every opportunity I get with the national team, it's grind time. You got one big goal in a year, and every little thing you do is now, setting you up to either, make it, or to not. And that's just exactly how it is. And like you said, there's a bunch of players that are extremely talented in this position that can play, and that we have the opportunity to represent our country. So it's not going to come easy. And I think for me, that makes it more of a fun thing, where you got a bunch of guys fighting for this one opportunity to get in there. And it's something very exciting, I think. Yeah.
All right, I know Tim's last question is about your tattoos, so go ahead, Tim.
I appreciate you setting the table, and I didn't want to forget that. So you are very heavily tatted.
Yeah.
What's next? Are you just constantly getting them?
What's next? There's no
Where's your
room.
favorite artist?
Yeah, so I think the tattoos it's just, for me, it's just a part of me. I think,
Mhm.
like, it's something I started when I was 15.
Yeah.
And, for me, it's just been, nonstop things that I like, things that I think are cool, meaningful tattoos, whatever it is, I put it on my body. And I think it's, for me, it's whether you the story I have about tattoos is like, if you get a tattoo when you're, 15, at 15, you thought it was cool, you thought it was badass. So there's no regret. Like, you at that age, you were like, "That's awesome, dude. Like, that was the coolest thing in the world for me." So I'm not gonna, 10 years later, I'm gonna regret it. No, no, no. Like, when I was 15, that was the dopest thing in the world
Totally,
for me.
totally.
So for me, it's just about expressing myself, things that I like. It's just my style now, I guess. Like, it's just a part of me, and kind of who I am. My parents are not big fans of it, but I think me seeing them, seeing me have, success on the field, it gives them some type of
Totally.
relaxation. Yeah, to
Well,
all the
well, I'm sure, I'm,
tattoos.
I'm sure, I'm sure they don't love the tattoos, but they love the person and the player you've become.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
big credit to your parents as well. We'll have to at some point hook up and tell me your
Yeah.
favorite artist, and we'll get some ink. I'm 46 and it doesn't stop. So
There you go.
I feel you. And listen, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, and big fans of you on this show. So continued success.
Thanks, guys. I
Yeah, and
appreciate that.
Diego, let's make an agreement right now. If you make the World Cup team, you're gonna get a tat.
Perfect.
For
I don't
sure.
know what it'll be. You decide. You think about it. Maybe you already
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
But
Let's
let's
do it.
hope
Yeah.
we're all wishing for you to have that success. And look, man, as someone who has again watched you in person,
Yeah.
stay humble, man.
Of
Stay
course.
humble. You
Yeah.
are you are inspiring all of us. And it's sad to say, but you're in a generation now where people don't view it the same way you do.
Yeah.
And just keep grinding, keep getting better defensively, running, all the little
Yep.
things that aren't fun, but that are gonna make you a top player. It's
Yeah.
been an honor to watch you play, man, and I'm wishing you the very best.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.